Cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Comic Book 101. I am Thomas Ryan, and I am an indie comic book creator. I've been self publishing for about 3 years now, selling my comic books. I've made Average Joe, I've made Solaris, I've made Demigod Fist, and a couple other things in here. And today I'm just here to provide to the indie community. I'm here to give back. I'm here on this little vlog podcast. We're gonna talk about the ins and out of the indie comic book space and how to do what you do. If you want to know how to make a comic book, if you want to know how to write a script, if you want to know how to navigate this indie comic book world, this podcast is for you. And also, if you've been around for a while and you just want to talk about the state of the game at this point, that's some other things that we're going to talk about as well on this podcast. So this podcast is designed for us indie guys. I do feel personally that this is a space where there's not much for us. There are cons, right? We got cons, and we have platforms like Comixology or Global Comics and things like that. But there's no place that exists, in my opinion, where indie comic book creators can win. I feel like a lot of times we go out and we look for the big boys to come save us, right? Everybody wants that adaptation. Everybody wants a deal. Everybody wants that big shining, the big bucks to come through. And, if you're being realistic with yourself, a lot of times, most of us, 99% of us will not have that happen. So this podcast is a little bit more grounded. So I'm not here to sell you a dream. I'm not here to make you believe in fairy tales. I'm here to just speak the real and talk about the state of this indie comic book business that we love. And that's it. So who am I? My name is Thomas Ryan. I have been writing comics since about 2019. And I know when I say that, people, their eyebrows raised. They're like, what? You've only been doing this since 2019. How is that so? You have no idea what you're doing. How can you claim to be some type of a guru? Well, I'm not even claiming to be a guru, but how can you claim to be someone in the know if you've been doing this since about 2019? And what I tell them is, well, you know what? I wasn't lucky enough to be born during a time when, I can get up and go to a comic book shop, and every week get the newest issue of whatever's coming out. I wasn't lucky enough to be born in that time. So I wasn't reading the Spider-Man comics, but I was watching the Spider-Man cartoon. I wasn't reading any Batman comics, but I was watching the Batman animated series. I wasn't reading the X-Men comics, but I daggone sure was watching the X-Men animated series. So I came up in a different time. And I may have not been the ideal fan that people would likely expect from a comic book person in the know or somebody in the space. Like, a lot of guys, for decades, they've been around since comics were a dime, and I respect that. I haven't been around since comics were a dime. I grew up on the series. That's just where I stand. That's just where I come from. And that's the guy that you're dealing with here on this podcast. All right. I don't say that to say, oh, well, I haven't done anything. I don't know anything. I've done some stuff. Right. I've been around a little bit. It's been about 3 years. So I've done some stuff. I've made some mistakes, and, I got some stuff to talk about for sure. So, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. I lived in the Bronx for a very long time. And right now I am residing out in Connecticut, where people make fun of me for being at this point in time, but it's not that bad. So, but yeah, so that's where I am, and where I plan to go with this whole comic book thing is, a lot of people, they look for, like I said earlier, a lot of people, they look for like the big bucks, they look for the adaptations, they look for the movie deals, they look for that stuff. I'm looking for what I can give and what I can leave behind for the community. I think that will outlast anything that I do. I could sell 1 million comic books, but I feel that if I can leave something behind, something for the indie comics community, something that I can say, listen, I built this for us, in a place that indie guys can go, they can win, they can flourish. I feel like that is a life well lived. And what I ended up doing was I created an app. There are a few apps that we know of, but Mine's is a little bit different. So mine's is completely indie, and it's called Vivid Panel. So it's available on iPhone and Android. And what it is a pay-per-view kind of system. So when I say that, I mean that essentially a user can come onto the app and they can read any book on the app, and it costs them about 27 V coins, and V coins are my currency, and it's not crypto. No, it's not crypto. They're just an in-app currency that you use to purchase and read episodes. So it costs about 27 V coins to read an episode on my app, and you come onto the app and you read the episodes, and depending on who made the comic book and whose the episode is from, that creator gets all 27 V coins, which equates to about 27 cents per episode, and it goes directly to them. And it may not seem like a lot when it's just like 1 people or 5 people, but now if you have 100 people, then it starts to actually make a lot more sense. 1,000 people, it starts to make more sense. And then if you have 100 episodes, it just all compounds. So there's nothing that exists like this currently for indie creators, because I don't think any of the big businesses would put indie first, in my opinion. I don't think anybody any of the big boys would ever decide, hey, we're going to put people over profit. I don't see that happening. So I wanted to be the one to do it, because I understand how hard it was for me to get into indie comics, how hard it was for me to get started, how hard it was for me to try to figure things out. So that's the purpose behind this podcast, and flourishing and really providing a space for indie creators, both new and old, a place where they can flourish. So that is why I built the indie comics app Vivid Panel. And as far as comics that I've created about 4 series so far. One of them is called Average Joe. Another one of them is called Solaris. Another one of them is called Mach 4. And another one of them is called Demigod Fist. And those are my 4 series that I have going currently. And they're like, I ain't gonna lie, they're like my babies. They're the first 4 that I actually put out there and published and let people buy and let people critique and let people in to see. So those are where I started, and I'm extremely proud of the work that I've done, and I'm extremely proud of the work of the production team that were behind those books, because I am a writer primarily, and I have a team. For each book there's a different artist. For Demigod Fist and Average Joe, there's the same artist, but there's a team for every book, and the work they do is phenomenal, and I really respect those guys, because initially when I started Vivid Panel, it was supposed to be all about animations. Like, I wanted to just skip steps, right? I wanted to run before I crawled, and I'm like, you know what? I want to make animations. I want to get creative. I want to write these episodes and these movies and all this stuff, and then I want to put that out there. And once I seen the amount of effort that it required and the amount of money that it required, I was like, well, you know what? Yeah, let me find a different way. And what I ended up doing was I ended up getting into comics, because I felt that with comics, I could actually tell the same stories and do it sustainably. I won't break my bank account to be able to make a comic book. Whereas if I wanted to make an animation, it would probably be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I probably wouldn't be able to afford it. And if I could afford it, it would be one. And if it's only one, then there's a low, very, very slight likelihood that one episode or movie or whatever I made would be something that would make my career. So what I decided to do is just go the comic book route. Tell the stories, still tell the stories with passion, still tell the stories with love. And here I am today, with the Vivid Panel app, with the stories that I have compiled there. So overall, it's a weird life being an indie guy. I'm not gonna lie, it's a very weird life. It's a strange life being an indie guy. It's like when somebody asks you what you're doing as an indie comic book creator, like, what do you do? And it's like, well, I publish comic books. And if you do it full time, it kind of like get that pause from the person. It's like, yeah, I make comic books. and then they just kind of sit there waiting for you to say something else, yeah, that's it. You know, because it's hard for people to fathom, like, why would you make comic books? How do you make money? And why would you choose that career path? So it's a weird space to be an indie guy, but I love it. So far, these years have been great. They have been full of learning. They have been full of experiences. They have been full of mistakes. They have been full of wins. They have been full of losses. But overall, you know, the journey of becoming what I want to become and building the thing that I want to build, it I couldn't ask for anything more with that. So, you know, it's great. That, to say the least, it's great. You know, in a long story short, it's been awesome, and I plan on continuing on for the foreseeable future. So how I started making comics is kind of weird as well, because I woke up one day and I said, I am going to make comic books. There was nothing really that pulled me to it. I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I remember I was working a job. I was actually driving an Uber, and I remember being heavily just overwhelmed with my lifestyle, with, you know, trying to maintain I guess a luxurious lifestyle, houses, cars, and stuff like that. And I remember just feeling so empty every single day, and I got to a point where I just stopped caring. I said, you know what, I don't care about none of this stuff anymore. I understand that there's more to life than this. I understand that there's something inside of me that I need to get out, you know, and that's where the whole comic book idea came from. I said, you know, I really want to tap into my creative side. I really want to do something. I really want to put something out there in the world, as opposed to just chasing a dollar all day, every day, until the day I die. And so that's where it all began, with my comic book journey, with my publishing journey, with my platform, and whatever else that comes from that. So that's where it all started. And I'm glad it did. I'm really glad it did. You know, I don't know what I would, if I were in the same place at this point in time. I don't know what I probably would have lost my mind by now. Because I was on the brink of it. I'm not gonna lie, I was on the brink of it. Late in those years, before I started making comic books, I was on the break of kind of losing it, because I'm like, man, there's got to be more to this, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do or what I could do outside of what I was doing. So I'm glad I figured it out. I'm glad that I'm here with you, and I really hope that I can see you in the next episode, and you can hear me on the next episode if you're listening, and we can just you know, continue to go through my journey, continue to talk on topics regarding the indie comic book space, how to do things. I do know how to do things. I do know how to make a comic book. I do know how to publish them. I know how to do all that stuff. I've done it 100 times, and I can definitely guide anybody through that type of stuff. So that's what I'm happy about, that if somebody can come to this podcast and say, hey, listen, I didn't know how to make comic books before. I had no clue on what to do. I don't know where to go. I didn't know where to turn. But I found this video, and it really helped me understand. Or I found this podcast, and he just broke it down, and I could finally understand, like, okay, this is what I have to do. This is how I do that. If I can do that on each and every episode, then I am happy. If I can change somebody's life and make things easier when it comes to this space, because there's nothing there that's going to hold your hand. There's nobody here that's going to hold your hand unless you have a really good mentor. So I think that if I can get that done, if I can achieve that in every episode of this podcast, then I think they're successful. I'm really happy to be here. This was a really short episode, because this is really like a get to know you get to know me type of deal. So there's not really much more for me to say about myself in specifics, but there's a lot more that I can tell you about my career and everything that I've done in comics and everything that I plan to do in comics. So I hope to see you in the next episode. I'm looking forward to speaking with you, either you listening to me on the podcast or you watching me here on video, whatever it happens to be. So if this feels like it'll be a good spot for you to learn and grow and flourish and learn more about the comic book space, consider subscribing and liking and commenting and letting me know what you think. And I would greatly appreciate that. And I will see you in the next episode. Peace out.